I never expected to get caught by my newlywed wife, a public servant. I squatted awkwardly in the corner of the traffic police station, holding my head. Luckily, she didn't seem to recognize me. She just coldly wrote up my ticket beside me. I couldn't stop myself from calling out, "Honey." The auxiliary officer beside me burst out laughing. "If I remember correctly, you're the 29th person this month to call Officer Gu your wife." I was fucking speechless. Who are these idiots calling her that? Is my wife someone you can just call yours? They're making it sound like I'm being cheated on. I glanced sideways at the calendar on the wall. It was only the start of the month. I've been married to Qinghan for half a year. By my count, we'd met a grand total of 3 times. The first was when we got our marriage certificate and held a simple wedding. The second was our New Year's Eve dinner. And if you're asking about the third, it was right now. After I blew into the breathalyzer, the officer looked baffled. "Strange, you haven't been drinking. So, why were you driving so fast?" Caught red-handed, I felt a little guilty. My first time speeding, and I got nailed. Because I was miserable, okay? To win the sympathy of the men there, and hopefully get some leniency. I sobbed my heart out, tears and snot. What did I do to deserve this? My wife cheated on me right after we got married. She stays out all night like it's nothing. I even have to hand over my salary so she can support some male college student. The warmer she is to that college student, the colder she is to me. Sob. Sob, sob. The officers beside me were so moved that they were outraged. They all turned into warriors for justice. That's outrageous. Where's your wife? We'll deal with that cheating pair for you. A small notebook came flying over. It struck the back of the officer who had just spoken. Then a crisp, icy female voice rang out. "I told you to write tickets, not gossip at the entrance." A chill ran down my back. Oh no. Why did that cold, stern voice sound so familiar? I looked toward the voice. Out of the office came a woman in uniform. A stunning, tall beauty with long legs. Her face was expressionless, yet she commanded authority without a word. She looked almost exactly like Queen Medusa, stepped straight out of an animated series. She strode toward us in leather shoes. Every step seemed to land on my wildly pounding heart. I instinctively lowered my head and edged closer to the wall. I'd been caught speeding that night. I didn't dare tell my family, so I could only call my wife, the deputy director. I was also hoping her connections might lessen my punishment. "Director Gu, what brings you here?" When the officers saw my wife, Qinghan, approach, they politely stepped forward to greet her. Qinghan glanced at me, then turned to the traffic officer. "His ticket requires a family member's signature, right? Where do I sign?" She took the booklet from the officer's hand. Qinghan rapidly began writing in it. I blinked at her with my most innocent eyes, but she never looked at me once. She filled it out with a face as cold as frost. I thought she was only distant at home. I never expected her to be even colder outside. No, this wasn't distant. It was downright indifferent. Fortunately, I knew a little about her. It was simply her nature. "Name?" my wife suddenly asked me. She caught me completely off guard. Then I remembered the situation. I obediently gave my name, Chuan. Next, she asked for plenty of personal details, including my home address and my reason for speeding. Before long, Qinghan stopped writing. From across the desk, I reached out and tugged on her sleeve. I softly called to her, "Honey." Of the 3 staff members nearby, 2 choked on their water, and the other spat his out. Qinghan didn't look at me. She took the form and walked to the opposite counter. "You've got some nerve, kid. You actually dared to say that. But give it up. Director Gu was transferred in from higher up. Her future is limitless. Besides, 29 people have called her their wife this month already, and it's only the start of the month." Seeing Qinghan still hadn't returned, the officer who'd spoken earlier came closer. He lowered his voice. "You know, our Director Gu has a face that drives men crazy. Usually, she hates it when men try to get familiar with her for no reason." As he spoke, he handed me a cigarette and lit it. Then he advised, "Brother Chuan, don't say I didn't warn you. Keep your attitude respectful. She's upright and fair. She usually won't make things hard for you. Want to be her husband? Keep it in your dreams. Don't say it out loud." I took a deep drag of my cigarette. That instantly brought out my rebellious streak. I pulled a red booklet from my car center console. I flipped it open with both hands and shoved it before the 3 staffers. "Take a good look at this. It's a marriage certificate. Your Director Gu is my wife." The 3 of them took one look, and it really was exactly as I said. They grabbed the marriage certificate and examined it from every angle. Their eyes were full of shock. They kept gasping in disbelief. With a cigarette between my lips, I leaned against the doorframe. I watched the shock and envy on the 3 men's faces. The one issuing my ticket was my wife, and the one paying my fine and getting me released was also my wife. Just as I was feeling smug, the temperature around me suddenly plummeted. A figure carrying an oppressive aura walked over. I quickly hunched my neck. I tossed the cigarette down and crushed it underfoot. I turned my head. My eyes met the gaze beneath her long lashes, her eyes gleaming like black obsidian. She slapped a printed document onto the desk, pointing to the bottom right corner. "Sign," I asked timidly. "Whose name?" Qinghan's delicate brows furrowed. furrowed. She looked at me as if questioning my intelligence. Only then did I understand. I hurriedly picked up the pen and signed my full name. After signing it in a bold flourish, I carefully slid the document and pen back to her. Suddenly, a young staffer's cry of pain erupted beside us. I instinctively turned to look. The young guy from earlier was rubbing his shin to ease the pain. Qinghan withdrew the leg she'd used to kick him. She closed the marriage certificate and shoved it into my hand. Put that away. Don't take it out for no reason. Another staffer hurried over and handed the receipt to Qinghan. Qinghan stuffed the receipt into my hand as well. License revoked. Fine. 1,200 yuan. I blinked at her with innocent eyes. Don't I need to be detained or something? Qinghan stood straight and looked me in the eye. Her blue eyes held a solemn, imposing air. I was 176 centimeters tall. Qinghan was 173 centimeters. In heeled leather shoes, she was as tall as me. But in presence, I was no match for her. Seeing my innocent, wounded expression, Qinghan finally said, "It hasn't come to that. Go home." I hurriedly gathered my things. Like an idiot, I asked, "Did you pay the fine?" Qinghan nodded. "I paid it." "Oh." Several male staffers around us let out a collective "oh." Qinghan slowly turned her head toward them. The room went silent at once, and everyone lowered their heads. I followed Qinghan out of the traffic police station. Before leaving, I turned and waved at them. I made my exit without leaving a trace. At the car, I put my hand on the driver's door handle. A soft cough sounded. Only then did I realize my license had just been revoked. I shook my head helplessly. "Go back to work. I'll call a designated driver." The words had barely left my mouth when Qinghan opened the driver's door. She got right in. I was completely dumbfounded. I stared at her blankly. Qinghan shot me an annoyed glare. "Get in." I hurried around and climbed into the passenger seat. After fastening my seatbelt, the car smoothly pulled out onto the access road. The silence inside was suffocating. When people were around, I could still make small talk, but alone with her now, I had no idea what to say. I awkwardly twisted my fingers together. "What the hell were you doing tonight?" Her cool voice carried a trace of accusation. It took me seconds to realize she meant me. I was about to explain, then sighed. I hadn't seen my wife for months. I was in a bad mood. My head was nearly buried in my chest. Suddenly, someone tapped my arm. She pushed me upright. I nervously sat up straight. I looked at Qinghan beside me. She was focused on the road ahead. Her eyes hadn't been on me at all. Confused, I asked, "What is it?" "Your seat belt." As always, she used as few words as possible. Still, I understood what she meant. My seat belt was crooked. I straightened it, then looked at Qinghan again. She was still driving with rigid precision. Though she never looked over, she knew exactly what I was doing. I licked my lips. "I thought you were about to scold me." I barely spent any time alone with Qinghan, but there were only the two of us in the car now. If I didn't find something to talk about, it would be too awkward. Street light poured through the window, illuminating half of Qinghan's face. Cool, breathtakingly beautiful. Then she suddenly said, "Why would I scold you? I saw you kick your subordinate earlier. I thought you were going to hit me too." Qinghan glanced at me. Her expression was calm. "Are you my subordinate?" Her words held a hint of mockery and resignation. For some reason, I always seemed so insecure around her. So much that even I couldn't stand it. A pathetic blend of stupidity and dullness. The only thing I could do was shut up. We arrived at the apartment complex's underground garage. After turning off the engine, Qinghan didn't get out. "I told you before we got married. My job is unusual. I'm often away from home. And you said you understood." I thought you truly understood. Maybe it was because of her profession, or because she was a superior. But as she said it, I felt like a student being lectured by a school disciplinarian. I nodded to show I understood. "I know your work is special. You have to work overtime and travel often." Qinghan leaned back in her seat, arms folded. She stared ahead, looking helpless. I knew I couldn't keep arguing about it, so I told her the truth. My parents were nagging me about having children tonight. It got to me. So I went out for a drive. "A drive? You were doing 160 kilometers an hour." I hunched my neck and muttered, "It won't happen again." Qinghan seemed to let me off. She opened the door and got out. The two of us headed home, one after the other. Once home, we each went to our own room. Normally, two people living together without speaking or connecting would feel awkward, but living under the same roof as Qinghan, aside from the initial awkwardness, I no longer felt awkward at all. After washing up, I went to the kitchen for some warm water. Qinghan was in the living room getting dressed. She put on her police cap. I froze. "You're going out again?" Qinghan's long hair wasn't even fully dry yet. I watched her button up her uniform shirt. Then she looked at me. She nodded and said, "Yes, it's my turn for overnight supervisor duty." Watching her put on black socks, I couldn't bring myself to say, "Stay home tonight." "You haven't worked at the traffic police unit before, have you?" Qinghan said as she put on her shoes. "I'm only assigned here temporarily. I'll return to the police department soon." After that, She glanced at me, then turned the handle and walked out. I watched her retreating figure. Before long, she was only a car in the distance, until she disappeared from sight. It seemed that ever since childhood, all I could do was watch her leave me behind. In kindergarten, she comforted me when I cried. When I was in 3rd grade, she had already skipped ahead to middle school. When I started middle school, she entered an elite youth program. After I finished my college entrance exams, she had already finished graduate school. Can you believe that? She was still too young. So her parents had her continue on for a doctorate. Then she entered a selective government recruitment program. By the time I graduated college, she had already completed 2 years of closed training and went straight into a 2nd-level research officer post. Other than kindergarten, which we attended together, I could never keep pace with her in school. If our parents' families weren't lifelong friends, I probably would never have seen her again. No, maybe once a year during the Lunar New Year. In my hazy memories, there was only her striking height above the crowd, her devastating beauty, and her distant, untouchable coolness. I'd secretly loved her all along, but I knew it could never happen. Not until I became her husband did I realize it wasn't a dream. The only problem was that, as a married couple, we were worse than roommates. The next day was the weekend. My father-in-law invited me over for a meal. When I arrived at the Gu family home, I found Gu Ningxu was there too. Gu Qinghan was absurdly exceptional. She had left everyone her age far behind. But her younger sister, Gu Ningxu, was much more ordinary. She was just as tall and beautiful, but terrible at studying. She couldn't even reach an average level. How did I know? Unlike her sister, Ningxu and I studied normally together from kindergarten through college. I had the highest admission score at our university. She had the lowest. The moment I arrived, she dragged me into a 2-player game. Look at you. Get over here and support me. I shook my head and refused. I rested my dumb head on the table and watched her play. What kind of guy do you think your sister likes? At my question, Gu Ningxu grinned happily. Don't worry, it's definitely not your type. I sent her sprawling with one kick. Get lost. Talk properly. The door swung open with a click. Gu Qinghan made her entrance with the aura of an ice queen. She wore a dress shirt, with her jacket draped over one arm. Without the jacket, her figure looked even more stunning. Her natural, ample curves were so dazzling I could barely keep my eyes open. Hearing her arrive, my mother-in-law took her jacket. She pulled her into the living room. The instant she entered, her gaze swept over Ningxu and me like a scanner. I immediately sat up straight. She gave Gu Ningxu a faint look, then casually sat across from me. My father-in-law and mother-in-law continued working away in the kitchen. I moved beside her and poured her a cup of hot water. Why are you here too? Gu Qinghan glanced at me. She took a sip of water without saying a word. Across from us, Gu Ningxu, enjoying the show, burst out laughing without mercy. Oh, I can't. I'm dying here. This is her home. Does she need a reason to come back? I was mortified. I'd embarrassed myself so damn badly. Only then did I realize I was at my father-in-law's house, not my own. I had no idea why, but I always said brainless things in front of Gu Qinghan. Luckily, after embarrassing myself so many times, I was getting used to it. After a pause, I asked with concern, were you tired after last night's shift? Why don't you get some sleep first? Gu Qinghan set down her cup. She slowly relaxed and leaned back on the sofa. Suddenly, a fair, delicate hand reached behind my neck. It gently patted me twice, then slid down my back onto the sofa. That soft touch made my mind go blank. I froze on the spot. Wake me when the food is ready. Gu Qinghan closed her eyes after saying that, leaving me alone, squirming in my seat. My heart raced, and my face burned. After lunch, Gu Qinghan changed into her uniform and headed back to work. I followed behind and watched her get into her car. Before she left, I handed her several mandarins I'd warmed in my hands. I picked the sweet female mandarins. They're sweet. Eat them if you get thirsty at work. Gu Qinghan raised an eyebrow, giving me an unreadable look. An awkward silence fell between us. Gu Qinghan took the mandarins from my hand. That brief touch sent my heart fluttering again. Go back inside. I nodded and turned to leave. Then I remembered something. Before she could drive off, I said, make sure you get some rest. Gu Qinghan nodded. She waved for me to go back inside. Then her car slowly vanished from view. I stood there, feeling strangely hollow. She's long gone. Why are you still staring? It wasn't until Gu Ningxu tossed me a can of cola that I realized I'd been standing there for a long time. She had come out looking for me. I opened the can and took a sip, then sighed. I wasn't sure whether I was asking her or myself. Isn't it strange? I barely used to see your sister. Seeing her once in a while was enough to make me happy. Now that we're married, we see each other more often. We even live under the same roof, but it still doesn't feel like enough. I want to talk with your sister more, to be closer to her. I turned toward Gu Ningxu, who looked almost identical to Gu Qinghan. Do you think I'm being too greedy? Gu Ningxu looked me up and down with disgust. She clearly couldn't understand how I felt. You two are legally married now, and you live under the same roof. What exactly is stopping you? With that, Gu Ningxu opened her cola and took a big gulp. And yes, My sister is a little cold, but she's not heartless. The fact that she agreed to marry you means she accepts you in her heart. If you want to become more intimate, you need time and the right opportunity." At that, Gu Ningxu flashed a sly grin. Besides, that oblivious sister of mine has never dated anyone. With guidance from a romance master like me, flirt with her a little, and she'll be yours in no time. After hearing her say that, it actually made sense. I couldn't just wait for Gu Qinghan to make the first move. Still, I needed to know where to draw the line. I understood that too much can be worse than too little. The next day was Sunday. I worked like a man possessed in the kitchen. I packed for dishes and a soup, then headed to the traffic police unit with a lunch that looked, smelled, and tasted delicious. I'd heard Gu Qinghan would be transferred back soon, but she was still at the traffic police unit this month. Before going, I messaged her in advance, so I wouldn't make a wasted trip. To my surprise, Gu Qinghan was already waiting at the entrance. I got out of the taxi. Gu Qinghan looked at all the bags I was carrying, her brows faintly furrowed. "What is it?" I lifted the insulated bag for her to see. "I brought you lunch. I'm off work today, so I made you a few dishes and brought them over." I said it all in one breath, not giving her a chance to refuse. Gu Qinghan said nothing more. She let me bring it to her office. Once we reached her office, Gu Qinghan finally asked, "Why did you suddenly bring me lunch?" Looking at her cool, elegant face, I pretended to be calm and said casually, "Dad said you've been busy at work and you just grab whatever you can for meals. I'm your husband. Of course I should take better care of you." After hearing that, Gu Qinghan, she had nothing more to say. "Just take care of yourself." Then she answered a call, signed documents, and handled other things. She never stopped moving. Before long, she put on her cap. It looked like she was heading out. I quickly called out, "At least have a bite before you go." Gu Qinghan looked at me. "There's no time. Share it with the others." I turned and quickly opened the insulated lunchbox, packed it with food, snapped it shut, and ran after her. I caught up just as Gu Qinghan's car was about to leave. "Take this and eat on the way." Gu Qinghan paused in surprise, but she still accepted the lunchbox. Then I invited everyone else in the office to eat. The grown men ate with blissful expressions, constantly praising my cooking. Then they started asking what Gu Qinghan was like at home. The nerve of them. I treated them to lunch so I could learn what Gu Qinghan was like at work, but they started prying into my life instead. But she spent so little time at home after work that I had little to tell them. The night I was speeding, the young officer Gu Qinghan had kicked up with a grin as he ate. "Brother-in-law, you've got guts. When Director Gu is out in the field, only you dare tell her to eat. If we did that, we'd have to write a self-criticism when we got back." I traded information with the younger officers, and we quickly became friends. We even exchanged contact details and WeChat. When Gu Qinghan returned, she gave me the empty lunchbox. When I opened it, not only had she finished everything, she had washed it clean. As I kept taking the initiative, our relationship steadily grew closer. Then came the wedding of Gu Qinghan's co-worker and closest friend. She invited us as a couple. There was my opportunity. Amid the clinking glasses, I used Gu Qinghan's recent shift as an excuse and said she couldn't drink. Then I boldly declared, "Tonight, I'll drink 10 rounds." Gu Qinghan sat quietly beside me. She made no move to stop me, only watched me silently. Looking at Gu Qinghan beside me, wearing a dress for the first time, I felt like a fearless warrior. I grabbed the decanter and drank the baijiu straight from it. In the heat of the drinking battle, the alcohol hit me. I shamelessly told Gu Qinghan, "Honey, stand back a little. If a brawl breaks out, I'm afraid I won't be able to protect you." Gu Qinghan pulled me down as I stood there shouting. She gripped the back of my neck and pressed me into my chair. The moment I met her stern gaze, I sobered up instantly. I ducked my head and grinned. "My mistake. Keep your voice down." The corner of Gu Qinghan's lips lifted slightly. She didn't say another word. After that, I politely accepted every challenge. Before the second round was over, I was already completely lost. After all, at a drinking table, no one fears guys like me who taunt everyone indiscriminately. Without a word, Gu Qinghan took my glass. She clinked glasses with each person who came to toast us and downed every drink. Her overwhelming presence made them leave as soon as they finished toasting. But people from other tables were bolder, drawn by Gu Qinghan's cold, unattainable beauty. By my rough estimate, she drank nearly a pint of baijiu. If the bride, her close friend, hadn't stopped her, she would have kept drinking. As the one who started it, my face burned with shame. I didn't dare look up. Gu Qinghan patted my shoulder. "Li Chuan, are you still awake?" I was about to answer when a plan suddenly came to me. Wasn't this the perfect chance? I could use being drunk to get physically close to her, maybe even take things further. I turned toward her, pretending to be dazed. I struggled to open my eyes and look at her, then leaned to one side, as if I were about to fall from my chair. Although Gu Qinghan had drunk quite a bit, she still caught me with lightning reflexes. Seeing that I was about to collapse to my knees, Gu Qinghan put my arm around her neck, rested it over her other shoulder, and held it firmly. I went limp against her as she dragged me away. As soon as we left the private room, Qinghan found it inconvenient, so she hoisted me onto her back. It really proved the saying, small frame, enormous strength. I cracked one eye open and secretly watched Qinghan book us a hotel room as a married couple. She took me into the elevator and then to our room. She wiped my face and helped me out of my clothes. While she bent down to wipe my face, I pretended to be drunkenly wild and hugged her. I called her my wife. Qinghan gave a simple response. To my surprise, she didn't push me away and let me hold her for a while. I thought the moment was right, cradling the back of her head. I slowly leaned my face toward hers. I could feel her breathing gradually quicken. When we were just 1 centimeter apart, Qinghan suddenly turned her face away. She simply hugged me, leaning against her shoulder. I instantly sobered up. At the same time, my heart sank. Don't make a drunken scene. With that, Qinghan pressed me back onto the hotel bed. I quickly closed my eyes and lay still. Qinghan didn't lie down beside me afterward. From the sounds, she seemed to make do on the sofa. She left before dawn. Lying in bed, I couldn't understand it. Why was it that we, a married couple, had been married over half a year, yet hadn't even held hands? Can you believe that? But more urgently, after being so forward last night, how was I supposed to face Qinghan now? The way she dodged me left me utterly humiliated. Near noon, I still hadn't escaped the disappointment of last night. Ring, ring, ring. My phone rang. I felt both hopeful and afraid. When I checked it, it was my boss calling. The company needed me to take a long business trip. My boss feared I'd refuse, so he stressed how important this assignment was, along with the reward for completing it. Little did he know, the assignment felt like a pardon. Otherwise, I had no idea how I'd face Qinghan that night. I rushed home to pack. Within 2 hours, I was on a plane. After landing, I transferred to an old slow train, then a coach and a rural bus, and finally an animal-drawn cart. Along the way, I watched the landscape change from a major city to a remote village. My phone's signal dropped from 5G to 4G, then 3G, until there was no signal at all. After getting off the plane, I hesitated. I called home, then stared at Qinghan's number, unable to make the call. As her husband, I should have told her I was leaving on a business trip, but I was a coward. After what happened last night, I didn't dare face her. Qinghan probably knew I had faked being drunk. I'd faked it so I could take advantage of her. Forget it. Don't think about it. The more I thought, the more ashamed and miserable I felt. In a mountain village without even a signal, I spent more than half a month there. The assignment was completed smoothly. Everything in the mountains was wonderful. Clear waters, green hills, blue skies. It was quiet, welcoming, and full of kind people. The only downside was the lack of signal. I was completely cut off from the outside world. I found myself imagining, if I vanished here, the outside world might never even know. The night before I left, the warm-hearted villagers held a farewell feast for me. They called it a farewell feast, but it was really all local food from their homes. Mountain-raised chicken, duck, and lamb, and homemade sorghum liquor. It didn't look like much, but it was the tastiest, warmest meal I had ever eaten. It would have been even more perfect if not for the villagers drinking me under the table at the end. In that pleasantly drunk moment, I thought of that night at the hotel. I had been drunk then too, like a slideshow playing in my mind. I remembered every little moment with Qinghan from childhood until now. In the end, Qinghan and I belonged to different worlds. When I returned, I planned to be honest with her. I wasn't good enough for her. We should divorce. It reminded me of a story. Before Ananda, a disciple of the Buddha, became a monk, he saw a young woman on the road. From then on, he could never let go of his love for her. The Buddha asked him, "How deeply do you love her?" Ananda answered, "I would become a stone bridge, endure 500 years of wind, 500 years of sun, and 500 years of rain, only to ask that she cross that bridge once." I could relate to that a little. I didn't want to become the shackles holding Qinghan back. All I wanted was for her to glance at me once in a crowd. Torrential rain, a mudslide, a piercing cry jolted me awake. I was staying at the village chief's home. He asked me to watch his grandson before running out to warn the others. The sky was still dark. I hurriedly got dressed and held his 5-year-old grandson's hand as we waited anxiously indoors. The water kept rising. Nearing the doorstep, I decisively grabbed the boy and ran toward the hills behind the village. But the rain had made the path slick, and the ground itself was dangerously loose. We had barely climbed a few yards when the entire hillside gave way beneath us. A tree trunk came crashing toward us. I could only clutch the boy and tumble down with him, sliding with the collapsing hillside. It felt like riding a magic carpet, but we couldn't sit still and wait to die. If the earth beneath us collapsed, the boy and I would both be buried alive. As the landslide swept past a nearby bend, I leaped outward with the boy. We then rolled into a cave. Slow but violent crashes and tearing sounds came from nearby. The cave entrance grew narrower and narrower. The village chief's grandson trembled in my arms. He cried himself to sleep, then woke up and cried again. In my haze, I had no idea how much time had passed. A sliver of light came through the cave entrance. I struggled to open my eyes and tried to claw away the dirt and crawl out. After just a few attempts, I knew it was impossible. I was just an office worker, and with only my soft, uncalloused hands, there was no way I could dig us out by hand. Digging further would only drain my strength faster. Outside, night fell. Then daylight came again. I began to run a fever. The little boy stopped crying too. Not because he wasn't afraid, but because he lacked the strength to cry. I guess the landslide and mudslide had carried us far away. No one knew exactly where we were. Inside the silent cave, I thought about many things. Would Qinghan be sad if I died? How long before she found someone else to marry? 6 months, a year. Just thinking of her forgetting me, registering a marriage with another man, and living with him under the same roof made my chest feel unbearably tight. I wanted to cry, but only a hoarse sound came out. My throat was dry and raw, but perhaps this was fate. If Qinghan truly cared about me, she would come find me, wouldn't she? My consciousness slowly faded. Through the haze, I sensed Qinghan descending on a rope. Like a warrior sent from heaven, she took the nearly unconscious child from my arms. Then she came back down and carried me out. I felt so safe in her arms. I could lean against her without holding back. If only this beautiful dream could last forever. When I opened my eyes, there was only a fluorescent light on the ceiling. My whole body ached, and I couldn't muster an ounce of strength. It felt as if every bone in my body had been broken. I struggled to move my fingers, then turned my head and saw long, beautiful jet black hair. It was speckled with dry, hardened clumps of dirt, yet it couldn't hide its beauty. I tried to reach out, wanting to brush away the dirt. The woman beside my bed immediately sat up. It was my wife, Qinghan, whom I hadn't seen in so long. A flicker of a smile appeared on Qinghan's exhausted face, but she immediately forced it away. She touched my forehead, glanced at the monitor beside my bed, and only then looked at me. Don't move. They say surviving a disaster brings future blessings. How come I got scolded the moment I woke up? I felt so wronged. I had the urge to cry. Why are you being so harsh with me? Qinghan seemed at a loss. She took a tissue and wiped the tears from my eyes. I'm not being harsh. Don't move, or blood will flow back into your fore. How's the little boy? I changed the subject. Qinghan nodded. Nothing serious. They're observing him in a regular ward. As she adjusted my for drip, I reached out and held her fingers. She froze for a moment, then sat down and looked at me. I licked my dry lips. I thought I was going to die there. Qinghan pinched my cheek with her other hand. Chuan, you've got some nerve. You ran off to such a remote place without a word. If your mother hadn't called me crying, you might really have died out here. I was fine until she said that. Then I felt even worse. Before I left, I didn't dare message you. I was afraid you'd ignore me. Qinghan looked at me, puzzled. Maybe someone like her only knew the trouble of being pursued, not how it felt to pursue someone. Maybe she thought I was being overly sensitive. But after surviving that disaster, I thought it was best to be honest, even if it meant cutting ties for good. I took a deep breath and said, that night we drank, you wouldn't let me kiss you. I thought you were angry, so I didn't dare message you. Qinghan's brows drew tight. Her expression was grave. It was the first time I'd seen her look like that. She cupped my face in both hands. When did I ever say I was angry? Or that I'd ignore you? With my cheeks squeezed, I could barely speak. I could only shake my head slightly and mumble, I guess you didn't. Take out, I guess. Judging by Qinghan's reaction, she probably didn't dislike me. I took her hand and kissed the back of it. Qinghan jerked her hand back as if shocked. Don't mess around. She pushed me back down. Qinghan warned, don't move, or your wounds might split open. Why won't you let me kiss you? Do you dislike me? Now that everything was out in the open, I stopped pretending. I said whatever I wanted. Qinghan stood and looked down at me. She said coolly, are you ever going to stop? I struggled into a half-sitting position, leaning against the hospital bed. Don't change the subject. Don't you want a life with me? How are we even like a married couple? Forget kissing. I've never even held your hand. Qinghan paused. She sighed softly, still looking at me without expression. It seemed her face never showed any emotion. Chuan, I don't take intimacy lightly. If I disliked you, I wouldn't have married you. If I disliked you, I wouldn't have rushed over the moment I got the call, taking a helicopter to find you. I searched those mountains for 3 days and 2 nights. Qinghan paused and turned toward the window. I could finally breathe easy when I saw you were alive. No criminal has ever frightened me. I didn't even know what fear felt like until I couldn't find you. Qinghan's voice grew quieter. For the first time, she'd said so much to me at once. It made sense. She wouldn't have married me if she felt nothing for me. But perhaps I understood now. She wasn't cold. She just didn't know how to express herself. I wanted to say something that moment, but I didn't know what. Qinghan looked away from the window and turned back to me. On our wedding night, and that night, you were drunk both times. I'm 2 years older than you. I've been through more than you have. I need to take care of you. I wanted to argue, but everything she said was true. I want us to truly talk when you're sober, not use drunkenness as an excuse. The fluorescent light shone over Qinghan's fair face. We stared silently into each other's eyes. Looking directly at her, I saw that she not only had delicate skin, but deep, luminous eyes. They were like Lake Baikal beneath a moonlit sky, and I slowly sank into those dark waters. Actually, I wasn't drunk that night. Really. Give me a calculus problem set, and I could solve it. The corner of Qinghan's lips curled up. A faint smile danced in her eyes. That's why they say eyes can speak. Prove that infinitely many prime numbers leave a remainder of 1 when divided by 4. Qinghan suddenly gave me a number theory problem. It completely stunned me. I stared at her in total confusion. What did you say? Qinghan's smile faded. Li Chuan, I don't know how to talk about love, but a fair hand clasped mine, and she was looking straight at me. Once I make up my mind, I won't change it. Holding her hand, I leaned closer. The distance between us slowly closed. I could feel Qinghan's warm breath. Then a force suddenly pushed me back. My blood pressure shot through the roof. What are you doing? With red ears, Qinghan looked at the monitor. Wait until you're better. For the next 2 days, Qinghan cared for me herself. Only when the city bureau called to summon her did she pack up and leave. Once she left, there was no need for me to keep acting like an invalid. Under my mother's disapproving gaze, I wolfed down 3 bowls at a sitting and was discharged 3 days later. Those 3 days felt like years. I clearly remembered what Qinghan had said. Wait until you're better. The day I got home, Qinghan was away on an assignment. Looking at the empty room, my excitement and anticipation became a helpless sigh. I refused my mom's offer to stay and care for me. I unpacked a few things, ordered takeout, then played a game. After 1 round, it felt pointless. I remembered a question I'd seen online. Which is more important, your partner or gaming? The classic answer was, making love beats playing games. Sure enough, the key was that verb. After washing up, I did something unprecedented and grabbed my pillow. I went asleep in Qinghan's room. Could a woman's room really be this simple and tidy? 1 double bed, 1 desk, a lamp, and a few books. That was it. Still, breathing in the faint fragrance in the air, I suppose that counted as sharing a bed with her. Half asleep, I sensed a figure moving beside me. Every alarm in my head went off. A burglar was in the house. Qinghan stood there wrapped in a bath towel. Tiny droplets slid from the ends of her damp hair. Much of her usual sharp, capable presence had faded, replaced by a woman's softness and charm. I swallowed, but still reminded her. You said I'd have to wait until I was better. Qinghan's ears visibly reddened. She reached to turn off the light. I quickly raised my hand to stop her. Don't. We're already an old married couple. Qinghan seemed to be fighting a fierce battle with herself. Finally, it became 1 sentence. You just recovered from a serious